Makes sense.
Hmm?
Welcome to Integrated Health of Indiana's 7 o'clock talk. I've been in the office all day, so I'm not sweaty. She's been painting outside, and you can't tell it, but she's got blue specks and paint everywhere.
I mean,
So
I've done all kinds of stuff today. I have soaked waspers,
for
killed all
those
the
of you that
weeds,
aren't
planted flowers,
of Appalachian descent, that would be wasps.
waspers. If it's more than one, it's waspers.
Who agrees with waspers? Who agrees with wasps? Anyway, so she's been working hard, and I've just been working at the clinic. So, what we're going to talk about tonight is the big five that we mentioned last week. When we talk about fatigue, we talk about digestive disorders, we talk about dysfunctional hormones, we talk about depression, and we talk about weight. And it's what we are going to do at the end of this is we're going to post a link to a sign-in sheet, and you will get the elimination diet with the follow-up that will allow you to do the 1 month elimination diet, and then at 2 weeks the food reintroduction. Because if you start to do that, then honestly you're not going to end up wasting time and money in the clinic discussing what you've done and spending money on stuff that you can actually take care of yourself. Because what we want to do is have that foundational baseline stuff done, and then we want to work on the things that are hard for you to figure out, the things that, how we unspring the slinky. How would you term that? What would you say our job is to do to help people be healthier?
Kind of just there's the coach.
Kind of as the coach, and to dig in and figure stuff out.
Be your cheerleader.
I don't know about cheerleader, but yeah, we're there to help. So when we look at this, the first thing I'm going to start to show you is the GI map. And this is one of the tests. So how does this relate to fatigue? When patients were coming to you in the hospital, if they had infections and stuff, how did they present?
Lethargic, pale, hot, feverish.
And so, as you can tell, this is my GI map, and we collected it in July. And I'm a pretty healthy individual. I go to the gym 3 times a week. We eat the same diet. We do the same things. She goes to the gym as well. And so we have a healthy lifestyle. So this infection here, this pathogen, it doesn't kill me, because the body actually does what it's supposed to do, which is adapt and overcome. But we want optimal health. And if you have occult infections, so you can see everything that it tests for. It tests for all the bacterial pathogens. Well, not all of them, but the most common ones, especially for North America. It tests for the parasites, viral pathogens, and then here's a big one. 90% of the world is infected with H. pylori. And when you do triple antibiotic treatment, when you were reading about that for your mother, how often does that fail, and in what timeline?
It fails 80% of the time in about 2 months.
So 80% of the time with triple.
80% of the people will get H. pylori back within 2 months.
So 80% of the people will get H. pylori back within 2 months,
and then it becomes resistant to the antibiotics.
And so, what does H. pylori do to people?
Ulcers, stomach pain, GERD-like symptoms, acid reflux, causes people to feel full when they eat, even if they've only eaten a couple bites. It can cause anorexia, which means you don't want to eat.
And it can make you tired because you're going to malabsorb things. And if you malabsorb things, you don't have the nutrition to actually run your body system. The statistics that I read was actually 60% of all treatment for H. pylori fails. And so what we end up doing is we end up saying we want to go low and slow to kill this bacteria. So think of the old analogy of the frog in the pot. If you take a pot of boiling water and you throw a frog into it, he hits the water and he jumps right back out. But if you take a frog and you put him in a pot of water and you slowly turn up the heat, he gets used to it until he cooks. And so that's what we want to do with this bacteria, with all of these bacteria, is we want them to stay out in the open. And we want to kill them slowly with herbal microbials and stuff like that so that the body gets used to it. And this allows the other bacteria in your body to balance out. And that's a big thing. H. pylori is in 90% of the population. And in a big percentage of that, it causes no issues. But if you have digestive issues, reflux or any of that, and you probably have this, and if you sit there and you try to if you try to hit him with antibiotics, if you use hydrochloric acid, then he goes down into the interstitial parts of the cells and hides.
And he also hides in yeast.
And unfortunately, so I've been treating myself for quite a while. If you remember my GI map from about a year ago, I had no acromantia. And now I have brought him back to the tune of to where he's a little too high and I got to get him balanced out. So it's a process. I feel much better than I did a year ago. And that's what it's all about. It's discovering what helps you get better. But back to this and fatigue and how it affects you, we start to these are dysbiotic or overgrowth bacteria. And when those things happen, things can't work properly. You don't produce short chain fatty acids. Your gut doesn't heal. These things happen to you all the time. And then right here's the reason why I keep having some recurrent H. pylori. If you don't treat the yeast, H. pylori can go into the yeast, and when he does that, he's protected. It's like he forms his own biofilm if you've done any reading on this type of stuff, and that's where he hides. So we start to treat these things and get rid of these parasites and the worms and all of that, and we start to heal it up. But as a foundational functional thing, are you absorbing the way that you should? Are you able to digest what you need to digest? Does your gut act as a barrier to not allow pathogens into the system? That's where we start to look at, are you digesting your fats? Yes, I am. My pancreatic elastase is I'd like that to be a little higher. I'd like that to be in the 400s and 500s. My beta glucuronidase looks good. This is especially important for women because if you are recycling that, you will become estrogen dominant. And then we start to have all kinds of funky things happening. And last but not least, zonulin. When we see zonulin, we know, and it's high, there is leaky gut. If you have leaky gut, anytime you eat stuff that's questionable, you're going to have symptoms. I generally get itchy arms and I break out in a rash. So that is, and then we start to look at, is the Helicobacter resistant to antibiotics? What do they do? And then we can also look at things herbally and how do we support those? And that's the way that we look at this and we go into it. The other way that we also look at it is how is your body functioning? And so when we look at the overview, we get a good view of how things are happening and are the processes inside your body, for the most part, doing what they're supposed to do. And yes, mine's doing pretty well. And this is after a lot of work, but now I can go off the rails and do stuff, and it doesn't really hurt me. When we start to look at my need for nutrients, we see that I need biotin, and that's for collagen and stuff like that, hair, skin, and nails.
100% of the people we've tested has needed biotin.
Yep.
Every test comes back, everybody needs biotin.
And what else is important is look at this lysine. Lysine is actually very important to the body because that's what helps you fight off viri, and especially in the time of all these viruses that keep mutating and doing stuff, you want your system to be able to work. Yes, ma'am.
A little tidbit about lysine. If you have, if you know anybody that has cancer and has mouth sores, they absolutely need lysine because they will get mouth sores from their treatment. They will just get mouth sores. They're super painful for them. But if you get them on lysine and keep them on lysine, those will go away and they will be much more comfortable.
And we can also see toxic impacts. We can look at what your body is doing and is it clearing out. So have you ever wondered if you methylate? Have you ever wondered if you need glutathione? This is where we get to see that at. And then we get to continue to dig down and look at the processes in your body. And so this glycolysis, how do we break down and use sugar? Krebs cycle, how do we produce energy? And we can see that I'm having some issues in my Krebs cycle, but everything else is kind of balancing out. So this is how we treat all of these disorders in a very foundational and functional way, because it is for your body to be optimized. And while we still have just a few minutes left, that's the Krebs cycle. Here we look at fatty acid oxidation. So if you're resistant to losing weight, we can start to see where we need to work at and how we need to actually help your body utilize the fat. We can look at your beta hydroxybutyric acid. So when you go ketogenic, can you produce ketones? And not only that, but that's part of being metabolically flexible. So if you've heard people talk about metabolic flexibility, this is what they're talking about. Your ability to not only produce, but also utilize ketones. And if you're not doing that, then we can help you. That's where we come in. We help you get to the point that you can do that. When we start to look at how phenylalanine is doing, we're starting to look at your amino acids and the proteins and how your body builds you back up. And then if you're a weightlifter, of course, you've heard about the branch chain amino acids, and you do need those. You need those to also build up your glutathione. And then once we get into, again, the amino acids and the protein metabolism, we can start to look at tryptophan, which is a rate limiting factor for serotonin, which is your feel-good hormone. So we can start to see if you're having problems with your neurotransmitters. And that's where, when we talk about depression, we'll also start to talk about that because it's very important for that. And last but not least, pretty good, that cysteine. This cysteine is a rate limiting step for glutathione. So we can start to see if we need to supplement with glutathione. So you can see how much information we get, and it's going to be different for everyone. And this is when we start to talk about personalized medicine or personalized health, because we don't use medications. I'm a chiropractor. She's an RN. She can tell you tons about medications. I work on the supplement and natural side to get you to be healthy that way. are there any questions? Because as you can see, it's a very detailed test, and it's what helps us get started with you and helps get you to the point that you start to feel better. We treat the neurotransmitters so you feel good, and then we work on beta oxidation, and then we work on glycolysis, and we do all of this to help your body do better. And so part of the free and easy things to do with that is trying to figure out what you're sensitive to and if you have a leaky gut. So a lot of people will feel tremendously better just on the elimination diet. And so the people that we work with at Mondo have done a page, as you can see at the bottom of the screen. There's a link there that you can copy and paste and sign up, and they're going to send you the elimination diet and the reintroduction. So they were supposed to have the whole thing ready, and we don't have that ready yet, or I haven't tested it. And I know this is the surefire way to make sure that you get it. And so that's what we're doing, or that's what I'm going to do. So that's the thing. Generally, we like to go about 3 to 4 days, because most supplements are water soluble, Susan. So they'll last about 3 to 4 days, and then you'll pee them out. They'll be gone. And you should be pretty good at that point in time. Your orals are not going to do that. If you want to wait a little longer and wait a week, that's fine.
Well, I don't think your supplements, but it's also berries. If you do the Omnix, you need to not eat berries. And there's like 3 things you shouldn't eat, like 72 hours before you take the test on the Omnix. It's berries, and there's 2 others.
That's why she takes care of all of that stuff.
I don't think so. So the way the Omnix works, the things you take in orally are probably not going to be really bothersome, other than if it hits your plasma. So it's urine, plasma, and then if you do the GI map, of course, it's stool.
Yeah. And typically when you do those, you just have an 8-hour fast for the serum draw, and you should be good to go.
So the GI map, you don't have to stop taking anything at any point, because it's not going to affect anything. The only thing that your oral intake would affect would be your Omnix, which is your micronutrients here, whatever you call them.
Well, just your nutrition. So if we start to look behind where we're talking, you can start to see where it's talking about all the nutrition. How am I doing on the branch chains and the alpha ketolytic and the pyruvic? Look at my B12 need, all of these things. And this is part of doing this testing. It's like they say in class, test, don't guess, because you could be guessing at a lot of things. Is it thyroid? Is the thyroid caused because there's a problem with the thyroid? Or do you have antibodies present? Or are you not getting enough tyrosine and stuff to run the thyroid? You're not getting enough selenium, or you're not getting enough zinc or iron? How do you know? There's too many variables.
Yeah, and then if you are lacking in certain nutrients, that actually can be a factor in, like AFib and things like that.
Absolutely. And so this is why it's very important to do these types of things. And this is the latest and the greatest. That's why I've done them on everybody.
This is it's going to be a requirement for the functional medicine patients. These are going to be our keystone tests. So in order to be a part of our program, you're going to have to do these ones.
Yep. And one of the last things I will show you is this is actually a great test right there. Because if you read that, 8-hydroxy-2-deoxyguanosine, DNA oxidation. It tells us if you're doing damage to your DNA, because you should not be doing damage to your DNA. If you're doing damage to your DNA and you're replicating damaged DNA, then you're getting into big time issues. So that's why we want to do all of this. And that's how this helps with what we're dealing with today, which is fatigue. We have to look at the neurotransmitters. And if you're tired, why? Are you getting the components that you need for serotonin? And then are you utilizing them? I just did one on my daughter Zoe, and she has an issue with, she has the precursors that are high, but then the actual component, whether it be serotonin or whatnot, is actually mid to low. And you want to see those two numbers flip flop, because what that's telling us is she's having a problem doing that. What damages your DNA? Boy, that list is long. First thing I start to think about with that are oxidized fats, trans fats, anything that your body is going to start to make lipid membranes out of. If you have a problem with making lipids or making membranes, you will have problems protecting the DNA, not being able to process folic acid. So if your folic acid is off, then you're not going to be able to protect the DNA. And that strand is, when you don't have folic acid, what happens is that allows the strand to open up, and then the DNA actually expresses itself. And the methylation is dependent on folic acid. Radiation can do it. Oh goodness. Bad cholesterol, LDLs that are oxidized, cheap food. You're not getting good selenium, not getting any seafood, not getting any omega-3 fatty acids.
Yeah, I don't eat any seafood.
Oh, I made shrimp last week, and I just heated it up in the oils, and it has lit her up like a Christmas tree.
If you are allergic to seafood, please don't feed it to your friends.
I didn't feed it to her. I just warmed up the shrimp, and it did not matter. She is sensitive to the parts per billion component.
Anaphylaxis, 8 or 9 days worth of hives.
Yep. Yeah, they're on your legs more so than your arms.
They're everywhere.
They're everywhere. They're everywhere. So there's the elimination diet. Any questions? Suze, can I help you out there with another one? If not, we went a little bit over. Sorry for taking more of your time, but we are here to help, and we are excited to help. We've been doing lots of consults and getting people started with this, and they're all doing fabulous. We did have a new member of the integrated health family, a 8-pound, we can't say the name, but we had an 8-pound little boy born on the 15th to one of our functional medicine patients, and
We've
very
got
healthy.
A handful of them now.
Yeah. All right. Have a good evening. Hi, Kath. You're welcome.